He serves as a columnist for Newsmax. He has been published in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Post, The Hill, Reason Magazine, dozens of other publications. He's peaking. Maybe he's peaking too early. Did he ever think of that? You got to pace yourself, Gregory Lyakhov. Welcome, Gregory Lyakhov, to the Mark Thompson Show, sir.
Thank you so much. I'm a big fan of the show, so it means a lot to me.
You are 17 years old, is that right?
I am.
Gosh, that's really, really cool. How did you get into all of this? By the way, I know your origin story. I've studied up on you. I've done my homework, but I want the audience to get up to speed, and then I'm going to pepper you, Gregory. I'm going to pepper you. I'm going to speed bag you with questions about what's going on in America right now. But right now, your origin story, please, sir.
Yeah, definitely. So for 16 years of my life, I had undiagnosed ADHD. And for me, that meant that I was a failing student. I couldn't read, I couldn't write. And then only last year did I finally get diagnosed. And that's when my entire life changed. I went from someone who never read a book to, picking up my first book, reading it. My entire life changed with that book. It was actually The Case for Israel by an author named Alan Dershowitz. I'm sure you're familiar. Alan Dershowitz then changed my life by actually becoming my mentor eventually in life. So I went from someone who couldn't even write, couldn't even read, to someone who now publishes in these publications. And a big part of it is because I want to show that, you can accomplish things if you just set your mind to it, even if you are 16 years late to it. So that's really my origin story. But it's just getting started.
When you say that he was your mentor, I'm just curious what kind of mentoring you needed or you benefited from the most.
Yeah, so he still is my mentor. So what he does is actually I send him my articles, he reads them, and he provides feedback. He has hopped on calls with me, everything like a normal mentor does. We have even spoke about the current situation in New York City with Zohran Mamdani running for mayor, and obviously he's a socialist, not friendly towards Israel candidate. So definitely we discuss things like that a lot. And he even provides quotes for my articles. So it's really all around. He's a wonderful person.
Well, he's a very learned man, of course, and he's a brilliant scholar and professor and author. And it's interesting, just because you mentioned Mamdani, and now I'll just get into some of the stuff. If Mamdani was pro-Israel, but also a socialist, would that change your view toward him?
Definitely not. You see, the Israel aspect is a very small reason of why I am so against a socialist candidate running for mayor in the biggest city with the biggest amount of Jews in the United States. It's mostly because he's a socialist and he wants what we had in Moscow in the 1970s. So that is the big concern there. And that's why I am so against him.
I know you're the son of, I think, Soviet refugees, are you not?
Yes.
Yeah. And so a lot of your perspective may be informed by that, and that's legitimate. I'm not suggesting in any way it's not legitimate. But it seems one of the problems, and I know maybe I don't want to get too New York-centric. We have a lot of New York viewers. But one of the problems with New York City is the cost of everything, right? I mean, the cost of living, the cost of doing everything to live in New York City is quite high. Doesn't Mamdani's approach or strategy begin to address some of those issues?
Yeah, so first off, he definitely does try to address every issue that New Yorkers are facing, like high groceries, high rent, high high child care. These are basic issues every parent, every person in New York City faces. And that's why he is becoming so popular, especially among the generation of people who are economically not doing so well in New York City and need a way out. However, we saw that socialism in the past and in the present doesn't work. Look at Venezuela, look at Cuba. These countries are not countries that anyone with half a brain cell that lives in New York City would want to move to, mainly because there the economic situation is even worse. So while he does try to address these issues, and I give him credit for that, I give him credit for listening to the people, his means of addressing them are just ridiculous. I mean, it's saying that we have to go to a policy that the USSR tried to implement and failed so badly, and now it's magically going to work in
what part of the policy in New York is what the USSR tried to adopt?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. We have to remember that even though we think of the USSR as communist, or a communism, the USSR was a socialist state. Even if in its name, it's a socialist state. So it's the same exact thing that Mamdani is trying to bring to New York City. For example, seizing the means of production, which is something that the DSA Charter, Democratic Socialists of America Charter, explains as one of its aspirations. That directly happened in the USSR. Obviously, we still had, or not we, I'm sorry, my parents still had small businesses in the USSR, and there were still functioning aspects of the society that weren't fully communist, because a fully communist system never existed in the in our world before.
Anyway, yeah.
But it was pretty much exactly what the DSA Charter is describing, and very few differences from, the 1970s, 1980s USSR to
But Gregory,
what Mamdani
tell me what in Mandami's world would overlap with seizing the means of production. I don't see that anywhere. I don't even see it as possible. I mean,
Yeah.
free transit. I get you're saying taking over the MTA. Is that kind of
Well,
what you're talking?
Well, no. Mamdani himself has been very silent on the seizing the means of production. We have seen that a lot of clips of himself talking about seizing the means of production in the past have resurfaced. I'm not a big fan of saying that, oh, because you believed something in the past, that means you believe it in the present. However, the very charter that he endorses, the Democratic Socialists of America Charter, does directly say that they plan to seize the means of production. It doesn't mean that he has to fully endorse every single little bit of the charter. That would be very shallow to say that he has to do. But it does mean that he should condemn it, or he should acknowledge it. And so far, we haven't seen that. We haven't seen him make a real effort to make it clear that, okay, I'm not going to seize the means of production. I think that's ridiculous.
But again, as a practical matter, what means of production could he seize? I mean,
Exactly.
it's New York City. Show me the means of production that he's going to be able to
That
seize.
is another point. The threat that he poses is not so much of what he is actually going to do, because he himself as a mayor is not going to change the entire United States to become a socialist country, or even the entire New York City to become a socialist country. That would be, again, ridiculous to say. The mayor doesn't have all the control. He can't do everything. And realistically, if you read, there was a report actually in the Economist about this. Realistically, his ability to change many of these things is very small. I mean, yes, he could create free buses if he gets the New York City Council to pass that and the Transportation Board to sign off on that. But overall, it's very small, the actual change that he will implement in New York City.
So
However,
shouldn't you be comforted by that?
Yes and no, because if we elect a mayor of the biggest city in the United States who is a Democrat socialist, it is normalizing the idea that democratic socialists, or democratic socialism, or socialism period, is a normal belief to have in our society, and we should elect more politicians like that. So I don't believe it's so much with Mamdani. I don't think he's a threat.
Yeah, you just don't like his brand, is what you're saying. It doesn't
Yes.
sound like you really have a lot of issues with him personally,
Well,
that I've heard yet.
Well, I do have a lot of issues with him personally and his personal beliefs, but I just don't believe that they would actually be coming to fruition in New York City.
Right.
It would be
Exactly.
ridiculous to
And
think.
look, Bernie Sanders, same thing. He's a socialist, right? I mean, but he's operated in the U.S. Senate. America's not going socialist, although you will concede, won't you, that we have a socialist and pretty robust socialist arm when it comes to bailing out major corporations, tax breaks for those who are already receiving the best of, I'd suggest, the best of the economy. I mean, the oil industry, even the food. When you talk about the subsidizing of meat, for example, I mean, we're providing for the people of America subsidies that are so substantial that they're not really seeing what the free market actually would do. So my point is, there are aspects of socialism that you see manifesting in other ways, right?
To an extent, if we look at laissez-faire economics, obviously we are not having a full laissez-faire market where there's no restrictions on anything. That would be what we had before the Great Depression, and that did not work, and it would not work.
We're a day's drive away from the laissez-faire.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you agree?
Of course, we are not 100% free market in the sense that we have no regulation. We have, nothing that controls business, which is good. It promotes, but to the level that we do have regulation is not to the extent of saying that you can't say that our government is socialist because it has regulations on business, because it gives tax breaks or anything like that. But yes, to the extent, obviously, programs like social welfare programs, like Social Security, that technically is a somewhat socialist sorry, somewhat socialist program, but
Sure.
that doesn't mean our government is socialist. And the effort for those programs, the entire point of Social Security, the entire point of I don't know, Medicaid, is to get people back up on their feet. It's not for them to stay on these programs, and that's the big thing that differs our economy, our society from a socialist society, because
So
we
yeah. So not to interrupt, I was just going to mention. So when you see that billions of dollars go into banks and into those who have been hobbled by bad decision making on Wall Street, that's also to get them back up on their feet. I mean, you can see how both are socialist. One deals with somebody who, doesn't can't put,
well,
doesn't have a pot to piss in, to use the phrase. And the other is, these are fat cats on Wall Street who created a bunch of investment vehicles that were phony, that were bad. I mean, that's the '08. The '08 crash is because of that.
but
And we bailed them all out.
But what these programs are turning into, the big issue of why these programs are, in my opinion, like Social Security to an extent is a socialist program. The reason I'm saying that is because we have a culture in the United States where people are staying on Social Security throughout their life. They're not getting off it. They're not trying to get back on their feet. They're just staying and relying on it. That's what a real program that's socialist is. It's not where we are giving incentives for people to get back on their feet. We're helping them, whether it's like a homeless shelter. A homeless shelter is not a socialist program because we're trying to get people back on their feet. The goal isn't to have people stay in homeless shelters. And that's the whole essence of why our government functions in the way that it does with these kind of socialist, kind of not programs, if that makes sense. Kind of freebies is what I like to call it. And interestingly enough, we do have the government even becoming more involved in the private sector. We have just recently, Donald Trump announced that the government bought, I believe it was 12% of Intel stock in exchange for the Chips Act, which gave money to Intel. I'm actually not a big supporter of that. I'm a big supporter of a lot of things that Donald Trump has been able to do for the economy, but investing our money or having shares in private companies, I think that's where it draws the line, because the whole entire essence for a free government or a free market is that the government stays out of business. And I think that's really just a murky line that if it was on the other foot, if Democrats were doing it, I think Republicans would be criticizing it.
Are corporate taxes too high?
Well, that's a very interesting question, and I'm actually doing a lot of research into that. But to give you the general,
let me before you answer, let me just say the reason I'm asking on the heels of what we were just talking about, which is sort of this, as you mentioned, the Intel deal. I'd suggest to you that the amount of money that we subsidize, when we give somebody a tax break, we give these companies a tax break, it's you and me giving them a tax break, okay? It is a subsidy. It's just like your Social Security, okay? Instead of sending somebody, in Cleveland, Ohio, a Social Security check, you are now,
oh
you
no.
you're underwriting what would be a heavier tax burden from that corporation. They no longer are bearing that. You and I are bearing that, okay?
Taxes in general, the whole entire point of it is to like taxes are for people to pay, not for the government to pay you. So a tax cut to a specific individual or a specific demographic of people, yes, that would technically burden the rest of Americans because someone would have to pay for that. However, what we have seen is that Donald Trump is not trying to, or his administration with the big beautiful bill recently, is not trying to just give a tax break to the corporations. He's giving a tax break all around. So it's not like other people are paying for the corporate tax break that we have seen. He is giving the middle class the biggest tax break that it ever has gotten in history. And he's giving, just everyone all around. And that's the big thing that separates this from, let's say, a normal subsidy.
Well, the great thing about the middle class tax break is that there are fewer middle class people than ever before. There's the middle class in America is being, as you know, essentially rubbed out, and you're ending up with the chasm between those who have a lot and those who have very little. But the real I'd suggest tax, just because we're off on this. I really like to get on a couple other things, but let's just try to round this out by saying, to me, that the real tax burden is not being borne by these companies that get so much out of American society and so many breaks from the American economic system. I mean, as I say, oil companies, tech companies, these are companies that are not paying by any yardstick a fair share. Amazon, another example. So it would be nothing to increase their tax burden ever so modestly. The billionaire class in the same category. You hear Bernie Sanders of the world, you hear Elizabeth Warrens of the world, just tax on billionaires 1%. I mean, it would completely change the arithmetic in America, and yet all we do is allow the rich to get richer. I mean, that is essentially what's happening, and it's happening under your guy now. I know you're a Trump fan. We'll talk about some of the other stuff he's doing, but you must see that those who have gained so much from the society owe something back to that society. Don't you see?
Well, yes, I do think that billionaires should be paying taxes. I am a big proponent of having anyone who is wealthy in America to pay their fair share of tax, but that's not saying that they aren't right now. Right now, the top 1% is paying about 46% of all US tax, which is a lot. All US tax revenue coming from citizens is paid by the top one. Well, not all, I'm sorry, around 46%. I believe it's 46, maybe a little bit lower, maybe 43. But somewhere around there is how much the top 1% is paying. And that is a huge sum. And
you're saying the top 1% of American earners are paying 46% of the taxes in America?
Somewhere like that. Somewhere.
Kim will check that right now.
Yes, please.
Kim is really good with the Google. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
just to continue, and also
Google it.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, Gregory.
Okay, your point on the middle class. Now, we do see that the middle class is shrinking. That is not a lie. You can't make that up. That is just a fact, that the middle class is shrinking. We have less people in the middle class than ever before. But that doesn't necessarily mean that as a society we're doing worse, because the measure of middle class is a little bit different. If you are in the lower class, but your quality of life is still higher than it was today, then you are still living a good life. What we should be looking at is the quality of life of how people are doing. So the lowest of the low are getting better. They're, instead of living in a shack, they're living in an apartment, let's say. So that's what we should be looking at the measurement, and that's how what has.
By the way, the stats do bear out what you're saying. To be fair to you, that when you say the lowest of the low, the lowest earners are getting are better off than they were. But what I'm talking about is the middle class of America, which has really been cored out, and they have borne an incredible tax burden.
Yes. Well, an incredible tax burden compared to who? Because they also
compared to the wealthy class. Compared to,
well,
I mean,
the wealthy pay much more tax than the middle class does, and the middle class still has gotten a tax cut. So
wait a minute. On a percentage basis, I don't think a wealthy American pays as much as a middle class American. I'm talking about on a percentage basis.
It's a highly debated topic. It's not as easy as an answer as you say. The reason I actually know that is because I just looked into it like a few hours ago. There's studies that go both ways. On average, yes, to an extent, billionaires, for example, pay less percentage tax per their entire net worth than, let's say, a millionaire. And do I think that's fair? Personally, I do not. However, I do think that billionaires are paying their fair share of taxes. The top.
Okay, so we're going to
45%. I was close. 46. I said.
Does Kim have the answer or no? Oh, is that what did she put it in the chat? I didn't see it. According to SmartAsher, the top 1% of earners typically pay much more in taxes than many other Americans. Nationwide, this group contributes 45% of total personal income collected. However, the top 1% doesn't pay the same amount everywhere. Therefore, some states may be more dependent on this group than others for tax revenue. Okay.
Yeah. And that goes into SALT tax, state deduction tax, which is a whole nother conversation that we could have another time.
All right, so I want to get off of taxes a bit, and I want to get into other policy real quick, and that is related to Trump policy. There's been a dramatic change in American, I'd suggest, international posture. There's been a tremendous change in domestic programs. Trump ran on a purging of immigrants to this country, and he's pursuing that in an extremely aggressive way. Uh, he has completely dismantled the EPA pretty much from the standpoint of protecting a lot of the environmental poisons from going into air, water, soil. I'm wondering if what of these things sparks with you? What do you go right on, man? That's what we want.
Well, I'll talk about a little bit about illegal immigration because I believe you mentioned it. Well, first off, let me just start off by saying I am very pro legal immigration. I think this country should be having a much bigger door for legal immigration than it currently does. And Trump, in his first term, one of his first promises was to make a big open door. That's what I want to see. I want to see a big open door for legal immigration and to streamline that process because it is way too hard for anyone who genuinely wants to contribute to American society to live in the United States with the current immigration process.
It
That's
takes
number one.
years. So you're right. I
Yeah.
mean, there's been no immigration reform from that standpoint. It's just
Yeah.
a heavy stick, it would seem.
Exactly. And my second point is referencing the illegal immigration. Now, we could have a debate on whether we should want the illegal immigrants that are currently in this country to stay or whether they should go. But the real basis is that the American people voted through Congress and Congress passed the law and the president signed off on it decades ago, starting back 100 years ago when our immigration laws were formed, that illegal immigrants have to be deported. That's what the law says, and that's what we should abide by. If the American people want to change that, if the American people feel as if illegal immigrants now should get amnesty, they could protest Congress and vote accordingly and get a new law passed. But right now, we want the laws that the American people voted for to be represented. And that's what we're forgetting. It's not a question of whether illegal immigrants are good or not. That's a separate argument. The real argument here is whether the law that says illegal immigrants should be deported, that's already on the books, should be enforced or not. And I believe it should be.
There's an elasticity, though, about enforcing that law. You know that through the
Yes.
decades. The government looks the other way because the government, the people of America, have benefited enormously economically from those who are in this country without formal
Yes.
documentation. Uh,
So
and as you said, just as a quick footnote, the idea that you could have worker programs that should be expanded. I mean, I would think that would be something you'd be screaming from the rooftops about because that is absolutely something that Trump could do, and yet we're not seeing any expansions in those
yeah,
programs.
so let me mention a few points that you brought up. So number one, yes, the government in the past has looked past this law, has not enforced it. I still believe, though, if that there's a law on the table that the American people voted for, we should be enforcing it. That's number one. Number two, the fact that the immigrants sorry, the immigrants contributed to American society, that is also questionable. It is not very clear how much they contributed. And what I mean by this is that while, yes, a lot of illegal immigrants still have jobs, they still pay taxes, and they still, are hardworking immigrants who come to this country to work. That's a big chunk of them, most of them really. Still, it has been shown through, and I'm citing right now a study by the Center of Immigration that was actually a part of a testimony in the House. I believe it was in 2024 or 2022. I forget what year, but that study has concluded that illegal immigrants are a net fiscal loss or a net fiscal negative to American society, not a net fiscal gain. And the main reason is because the illegal immigrants that are coming into the United States are not coming here with high bachelor's degrees or any sort of high level of education. Instead, they're coming here with a low level of education, and they tend to rely on programs like SNAP or previously rely on programs like SNAP. Now, Trump is trying to zero in on that. Section 8 housing, which Trump is also trying to zero in. Education for their children, which, let's say in New York State, costs $42,000 per child, which is a crazy number. So, there's a lot of benefits that come with illegal immigrants because they obviously pay taxes, they contribute, but they take more than they give. And that's what the study has shown.
This notion that you can get immigrants here who have bachelor's degrees and are highly skilled and they're not the ones coming, I think it's flawed in a couple of ways, and I'll just quickly mention one of them. you are seeing through this aggressive deportation that Donald Trump is pursuing, you're seeing the seizing of some of the top research scientists in the world who have been detained. As you know, I think there were two I can think of, one from Harvard, the other from Yale. And they were detained, sent to a detention center in Louisiana, one of them. This is one of the top biological research scientists in the world. So this is not somebody who doesn't have a bachelor's degree. This is a highly trained scientist. And many of these scientists, as you know, there's been a chilling effect now, and they're not even coming to this country. This used to be really the repository of so much great research. Now you're not finding it so much. There's really something of a brain drain in America. But let me get to your second point, which is sort of that these immigrants who do come here, first of all, I would say they do the work that Americans who are documented and legal aren't doing and aren't doing efficiently. I'm talking about the agricultural fields of California. If you go there, or the Plain States, if you go to these various places, I just saw a short video on YouTube, I think it was, from a farmer who said there's a 53-year-old Mexican guy, and he's talking like there's a 53-year-old Mexican guy out there. He'll do the job of six people, six Americans. They can't take it. They can't take the heat. They can't take the dryness. They're no good to me. So he was complaining about the fact that these guys are being taken away from him. So the idea somehow that they don't contribute. And the other point I would say, because I know you like statistics, and I didn't come armed with as many statistics clearly as I need to for the next conversation, the DACA recipients, who, as you know, that Trump just wants to load them all on a plane and get rid of them, those kids have an amazing track record. As you know, they're over 90% in terms of college degrees. Virtually none of them have had any kind of scrape with the law. It's a remarkable program, the DACA program, and yet we see them in the same way that we see illegal immigrants who just snuck over the border by night last night. So I think this is, I think there's a lot of conflation of this stuff on the immigrant questions, and I think it's being handled with a blunt instrument when it's actually something that should be handled with kind of a sensitivity of surgery.
Yeah. So number one, I do agree with you on your last point that yes, this should be handled with a lot of sensitivity, because there are case by case bases where it's a little bit confusing of whether it would benefit American society to deport someone or not to. But overall, we have 70% of all ICE deportations so far being of those illegal immigrants who actually committed crimes. 70%. So the vast majority.
I take wild issue with that figure. That is a total bullshit figure.
That's according to ICE itself and the White House and Tom Homan. So unless they're lying.
Tom Homan said it. It must be true. Please. All right, I want to move on. I want to move on to the environment. Okay, sure. You're a young person. I care about the future of the earth, and I would think you would as well. You see alternative energy and sustainable energy programs being completely dismantled by this administration. That, you must admit, is indefensible.
Well, yes and no. This is my perspective in general. First, let me go towards climate change as a reference. Obviously, if you ask me, climate change is real. I don't think there's any denying it. I mean, humans have been proven to negatively affect our environment, but not to the extent that obviously we have to go on solar panels today, or else our humankind is going to get wiped out. And I don't think anyone is saying that. However, what I do believe, and what I greatly believe in, is effective ways for sustainable energy. And when we see that solar panels are not very clear whether they're actually very effective, because number one, they cost a huge sum of money to develop. Then they also have a lot of resources that go into them. And then they also don't perform as well with, energy, gaining energy and trapping it as, let's say, I don't know, burning coal or something, or burning gas.
I'm sorry, I have to stop you, because just none of that is true. There's been tremendous refinement in solar energy,
but not enough. It has not been proven.
Of course, I don't know what enough is. Of course, never enough. But Europe has personal solar cells on so many residences, and it's helping to power towns and villages across Europe.
But still, electricity from a solar panel or from a wind turbine is significantly more expensive than electricity for a gasoline powered diesel engine or anything burning of coal. And I'm not saying that
I
is,
don't even know if that's true, Gregory.
of course,
But I am going to concede this for you. I think that you can't just throw a switch and make this transition. I think you have to make this transition, just as I was talking about with immigration, just with a textured strategy that does
yes,
still incorporate fossil fuel burning, but
yes,
begins to increase the amount of solar and wind and other sustainable
yes,
there's geothermal, there are a bunch of other sustainable projects underway.
yes.
And yet this administration, as you know, one of these wind projects, it was 3/4 of the way done, and he's saying stop it and dismantle it. And that's more
Well,
of an
those
owning the libs, isn't it, Gregory? I mean, you got to admit, you can't be good with the owning the libs stuff.
Look, to an extent, you are right in the sense that yes, it was almost completed. We spent so much money on it, so why not finish it? But also, it is a sign that it is a sign. Clearly, I don't believe it's not. It is a sign. I believe the one you're referencing is the one off Long Island on New York.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So there actually has been tests conducted of whether the windmills are going to affect the marine environment, and a big argument is that yes, they're going to significantly affect the marine environment, and that is true. My argument is not necessarily that we should be going 100% fossil fuel, always burning. I don't believe that. I think we should be investing in research instead. I think that the money we spend on windmills that are not proven to be as effective as, let's say, burning coal, that money should be put into research and development for a windmill or another source of energy that will actually be beneficial towards America. Because even countries like Germany, which right now is, I believe, almost 60% on a renewable energy basis, after obviously it had to stop buying gas from Russia due to the Ukraine war. Even countries like Germany, they still aren't fully reliant on fossil fuels, and it costs them a lot of money, a significant sum of money, to use these renewable energy sources that aren't 100% effective.
These
So
are
really the money,
processes. I'm glad you mentioned this because those are areas of the world that are already beginning that transition. China is way ahead of us now. I mean, I must tell you, your guy, Trump, he's taking a lot of steps backward into the 1950s. And I have to say, Gregory, a lot of the research to which you have pointed that you'd like to see done has been done. I'm not saying that these technologies can't be refined further, but I'm saying that a lot of this research as to exactly what ways in which these alternative energies should be conceived, a lot of the research about that has been completed. And as I say, these programs have shown great success. So could there be more success? Sure. I just would say, and then I'm going to jump on one last thing. I would just say when it comes to the environment, I mean, I think this administration's disposition is indefensible. Again, I think that it's a drill, baby, drill, which, as you know, doesn't actually even help you with the gas prices because all that energy goes out on the world market. Americans have no ownership
well,
in
what
the
do you mean? If it goes out to the world market, then it still does help Americans indirectly because it lowers global oil prices.
Sure, supply and
It has
demand. But I'll tell you, let's go, see the first part of this conversation. I mean, if you really want to talk about taking over an industry, if you want to talk about nationalizing an industry, you want to talk about having a piece of it. I think that Americans deserve a piece of that fossil fuel money. I mean, these are national parks, some of them,
Look, I don't believe,
where you're
I don't
permanent. I
believe we
know you
should
don't believe it,
nationalize
but
any industry.
what's that? What?
I don't believe we should be nationalizing any industry, period. I don't think it's the government's role.
I get
That's
it.
why, let's say,
Uh,
towards the Intel stock, I'm not a fan
Sure,
of
I
that.
get it. But I'm making a point, which is that we don't derive, Americans derive no advantage by allowing these, again, subsidized corporations. You're subsidizing them with incredible tax breaks
Of course we
to
do.
drill this stuff. And then, as I say, you're not even building towards sustainability. That's why I have a problem with this. It's not even building toward a sustainable
Look,
future.
I will agree with you on one point that we should be building towards a sustainable future. How I believe we should be building towards a sustainable future goes into research. Unless there is some fact that or statistic paper or research paper that has proven that solar panels or windmills or I don't know hydroelectric power is more effective or as effective as fossil fuels, it just will not work because so far our economy, people cannot afford it. We don't have energy. Energy prices are already so high. We don't have money to spare.
The solar power goes out on the grid. It goes on the grid and it's consumed by consumers the same way electricity is consumed with dirty energy.
But it is much more expensive and it is less efficient. That's why a solar panel, for example, cannot replace you still need to connect electricity for your house if you have a solar panel, or if unless you want to invest $200,000.
Of course, that's what you're. Of course, that's why That's why the solar panel exists. I don't. When this is to be continued, we will do this again. But the last thing, and I really, it strikes me as a little odd also because you're 17. I'm thinking in 10 years you'll be 27, and in 10 years it'll be 2035. And I would think by then your research studies on sustainable energy and on solar energies will just be getting done. And now you begin those projects. It may be 2045 before those are completed. And by then it's just too late, man. I mean, another half of all the species on Earth will be extinct. It'll be you'll start to see these insanely powerful weather systems that are wiping out entire communities. There's a lot on the line here, I would say.
Look, climate change does not contribute to, I don't know, the hurricane we saw a few weeks ago.
You don't think climate change contributes to that?
I don't think.
I mean, let's just go with this. Ocean temperature is a thing, and ocean temperature is higher. And
yes, but ocean temperature has been higher for many other periods on Earth in Earth's history. We have gone through ice ages. We have gone through temperatures where the Earth overall was hotter. That doesn't necessarily mean climate change is the cause. I think it does contribute somewhat to it. It is just not the overall main factor.
The Earth is hotter now. Okay, so all I would say is when you talk, because I'm not talking about the man-made part now, because I get that I can argue it, but not gonna. But you said I don't think climate change has anything to do with these latest hurricanes.
Not to the extent that you're making it seem.
The greatest way in which the Earth moves energy, heat energy, it's moved in the way of heat from one hemisphere to the other is through tropical weather systems. That's the way it's done. So the warmer the water, the more intense the weather systems, the greater the need for Earth to balance it. That's just a fact. And so I think climate change does have something to do with it.
No, well, that would be assuming that the water temperatures warmth is only contributed to by climate change. And that's just false, because even scientists concede to the fact that Earth goes towards periods where we are warmer, colder, we have an ice age. That is just science.
But as the ambient temperatures around the globe are warmer, the Earth's oceans take that heat and digest it.
I understand this, but that is not only caused because of climate change.
I just said, okay, all right.
It is natural for Earth to go through those cycles. Climate change does contribute, but not to the extent, again, that you're making it.
So the natural Earth cycles all of a sudden are this hockey stick after the Industrial Revolution, where that's just a fact.
You're talking about the amount of CO2 released into the air.
Sure, exactly. But the CO2 correlative is provable.
But let's look at the heat of the Earth right now compared to other periods in history. It is not so much off that it is completely irregular to, let's say, I don't know when the last time Earth was hot. I forgot the year, but my point is that
it hasn't been this hot in the recorded age. Okay, so anyway, let's finish. You stick to socialism on this one. All right.
We'll have the discussion another time.
We'll have this discussion another time. I would think that, and let me just finish up, because I know you write a lot and you talk a lot about the Trump administration, and you don't agree with everything, but you do agree with a lot. Does this administration seem to you to be more corrupt than a lot of others? More concerned with gifts to the president personally, to his family, and to his billionaire boys club?
I would not say so, especially when comparing them to other administrations. I don't believe that there was an administration that ever was not concerned about gifts or anything like that. I don't think that this one is particularly corrupt
But
compared to.
there is a there you would I mean I'll grant you that it's sort of a corrupt system, but you would have to say there are degrees of corruption, right?
I do believe there's degrees to the corruption scale, but I don't think Trump is, or anything he has done made it seem that way.
Okay. So when you look at the Vietnam deal, the tariff deal, where he says, I want these resorts greenlit, the Trump resort greenlit in Vietnam in order to get out from under the 46% tariff, that doesn't strike you as patronage straight up?
Well, no. Number one, that is not what he said. He said, I do know what you're referencing, but there were a lot of other components of the Vietnam deal than just his resorts, and that deal was still not even made to the extent that it
Well,
should
there are a
have.
bunch of deals that haven't been made. You're right
Yes,
about that.
of course, but we
Well,
have
let me pick the
foreign
let
direct
me go for
investment.
let me go for India. India gets a 50% tariff on it right now. Modi wouldn't agree to Trump's narrative of being the peacemaker, as you know, in the
That has nothing to do with why India is having a tariff. It's all because of where India is buying its oil and gas from, which is Russia.
it is the backbeat narrative of why Trump was angry with Modi. Modi and Trump used to be pals. You know that.
No, the reason why India is facing a tariff right now is because it's choosing to buy oil from an adversary of the Western world, Russia. So,
Right.
in an effort to prevent India from buying that oil, Trump is tariffing India. And that is the main reason. It has nothing to do with the fact that India's president, is it president or prime minister? I forget.
Yeah, I think I
President.
think it's prime
Yeah,
minister. Yeah, but I don't know. I
or
don't know
prime
either.
minister, fine,
Yeah.
does not want to condone the fact that Trump is actually the peacemaker in the whatever in the Pakistan India conflict that happened in February.
And lastly, Brazil, the 50% tax on imports from Brazil. Can you speak to that and the motivation of Donald Trump on that one?
What do you mean? Can you
Well, I mean
can
that he is imposing that tariff because he's not happy that Bolsonaro's on trial for the coup attempt there in Brazil.
well do you
He's
do you
he's
think
articulated that. He said the justice system has been weaponized against my friend Bolsonaro. And
So, okay, so first off, I don't believe that's corruption to tariff someone or tariff a country because of its justice system or because of its justice system being politicized or anything like that. That's not corruption. I don't know what you can
no,
describe it as, but
right. It's a different kind. It's not personalized
yeah,
corruption,
it
if
is
you want
not
to say. Yeah.
personalized
It's not
corruption.
self-enrichment. It's not
Yeah. Number
self-enrichment.
two,
Okay.
there's a lot of different reasons why Trump is choosing to tariff countries like Brazil, for example. And again, it's kind of into the same motive as why he's tariffing every country or almost every country that deals with the U.S. in that he's trying to make better economic deals with those countries. And when we have foreign direct investment, that is the highest we have ever seen in the United States. I believe we just I believe the total foreign direct investment for under from 2024 to 2028 is going to be something like $5 trillion. When we have such a big number, such a great amount of foreign direct investment, you can't call the tariffs a failure because they have clearly worked. We have clearly had huge economic turns with
You'll see a huge
deals
economic
in.
downturn, I think, Gregory, as a
No,
result of
we got the EU to finally militarize. We got NATO to start paying their share. We got
sure.
the UK to announce one of the biggest breakthroughs in tariffs in history. We got Saudi Arabia to pay over $600 billion in foreign direct investment into the United States. We can't possibly say that that these tariffs were a failure. I was not so sure about the tariffs at first, but after seeing the results and after seeing the amount of foreign direct investment and the trade deals made, there is no way you can say that they were a failure, because the truth is that they contributed a bunch of money into the U.S. economy, and hopefully many more trade deals to come in the next few months.
Well, we'll meet in 6 months and we'll see how it's all going. I will say Brazil, even on the arithmetic that you're doing, which is sort of a basic trade arithmetic, which is the arithmetic or logic of the current administration, we had a trade surplus, right? We were
So
actually
just because we have a trade surplus does not mean that we can't get a better deal out of that. So
okay. Well, then I guess
the,
there's just no way to win. All right, on that.
there is a way to win. The way to win is to get as best of a deal as we can. And we have a trade surplus with many of the countries that we had tariffs on, and we still got a better deal out of it. So clearly, it still worked.
You can read Gregory Lyakhov's stuff everywhere. You're the up and comer. You're the popular kid. I get it. I'm just glad you carved out a little time for us.
Thank you so much.
I love going around with you on this stuff. Some of it we felt like some of it we agreed on. Some of it we're still a little bit distant. But I feel very good about this relationship in the future. I think, yeah. I think you can dump Dershowitz and come around to Mark Thompson is what I'm thinking. Yeah. Congratulations on everything. Really excited that you were able to chat with us today, and I look forward to the next time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi,
Mark.
it's Mark,
All right.
and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.